Hello, hello. Thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome to Downtime. Lance, how are you?
Oh, not too bad. Had a strenuous PT session today, so I'm achy all over my body.
Well, it's like I said, we've discussed this before, but the knee replacement, it's sort of like you end up. It's amazing that it takes so long to recover, but the knee's a pretty complicated joint. But once it does, it's like you said, everybody I've ever spoken to, including my dad who had it, it's just sitting there going like, wish I had done it sooner.
Yeah.
Oh, dear Lord. Well,
conversely, hip replacement surgery, people are like up and walking the next day. It's like, surgery? What surgery? I didn't have surgery.
It's like a ball inside, and I got people. Yeah, I know people who are. I don't know. Biology is a complete mystery to me. It was one of the few subjects in school I had a very hard time passing, let alone getting a good grade in. Oh dear Lord. So while I've been working a lot on the back end to try to fix some stuff, and one of the things I've been doing is trying to add in memes, because there's a number of times when we talk about various memes, and one of your favorites, which you've mentioned before that you really like, I've now gotten into the show here, because this is a worthwhile one. So that's a really good one. I also put in this one so I can bring this one up, just because I think this one is the first time I saw that was when the United Healthcare guy was killed, and like as you had pointed out, there was a black woman who was killed that same night, and it's like, and then the other one that I just like is a personal favorite, Barack Obama. 0 skeletons in the closet that I'm aware of, and he's not one of those guys who's like Teflon, like Bill Clinton. It's just like, head of the. I mean, it just did everything right. Editor of the Harvard Law Review, graduated magna cum laude from Harvard Law degree. Went out instead of going to go get big Wall Street job. He went, worked with unemployed Chicago steel workers, helping them get benefits, the whole 9 yards. Donald Trump, convicted felon, paid off, a porn star, cheated on every wife he's ever had, brags about, and just like, absolutely. So I was like, so what's the difference?
Well, he's a good Christian.
There's that. Imagine how much easier life would have been there's a very huge difference in the two people, and Obama had a hard time getting elected. He got there, but what if Obama looked like this?
Very true.
How much easier do you think it would have been to get this man elected? This man would not have to have been the head of the Harvard Law Review. He wouldn't have had to have a nice marriage, 2 kids, still together with his first wife. He wouldn't have had to do all that shit. There's something about that picture that just like it kind of takes my breath away every time I look. It's well done. It's really well done. Yeah. So we're adding those in. If you can think of any other memes that you think we should put in, but we reference so many at so many points that I think it's worth getting them in there. So I've been taking the time to do that while I'm doing a billion other things.
There's 2 Far Side ones that I think are great that always deserve credit. One is the one of the School for the Gifted. The kid on the door that says "pull."
Yeah.
And then the other one, and I can't remember what it is, but it's basically supposed to be 2 desks that are admitting you into one place or the other. And one is, sophisticated things for the discerning viewer or whatever. And the other is crap for idiots. And there's a huge line for crap for idiots, and nobody.
One of the ones I like also from the far side is two guys are out hunting frogs, and let's see, can I get this in? It'll take a sec, but they're out hunting frogs, and one of them is shining a flashlight on the frog. Because you see, if you shine a flashlight on them, they don't move; they just freeze right in place. And the other guy, there's an alien saucer up there that's shining a light on the other guy, and it's just like, oh dear Lord. Okay, well, let's see. Just for you, this is the interface is not quite as fast as it used to be, but we're getting there. We're getting back to where this used to be. Oh, and of course, that's when I screw up the thing. So here we go. Yeah, this is. I agree. This is one of my favorites too. So here you go. Just for Commander.
Yeah.
Oh dear Lord. So other than PT, how you been?
Not too bad. Been chilly out,
Yeah.
rainy out. So, it's winter in the Pacific Northwest.
It only just started getting really cold. We've had a couple days like 18 degrees, and it's like I'm still in this place. It's 3 bedrooms, which is nice, but they've designed it in such a way that it's 3 floors. It's really it's. I feel like I'm in England because the house is really narrow.
Yeah,
but it's got 3, and it's just like keeping you're actually heating 3 floors. So I've shut off the heat to the bottom one and just try to keep enough that the pipes don't freeze. Oh dear Lord. So let's see. There was a couple of things. I will ask you where you want to go with this. I was thinking about a couple of different topics. One, and we've had topics like this similar, but who has influenced you most in your life? And I realize I'm going to sort of change my answer a bit, but I thought that would be an interesting topic. Another interesting topic would be the peace deal and how much of it Trump has not taken full responsibility for it, which was a complete and utter fucking shock, but he has taken some responsibility for it. And at first I was like, he's got no responsibility. And then I started to think maybe he's got a little. So I think that's a topic worth discussing. And then another topic that I think we should discuss, and you are very qualified to discuss, I was thinking we could discuss 2 things. One, since you have basically a lifetime of experience in the military, I thought I would ask you what it's like to be a Fox News host and ask you to opine on that for a little while and tell me what it's like working at Fox News and give your expert opinion on, and I'd like to know, like, the couch, is it really soft, or just, so a couple of those things. Or you could tell me about women in the military, which is another subject which you're probably less qualified to talk about because you've been in the military and you're not a Fox News host. But we'll take a chance. We'll take a stab. So where would you like to go?
Well, for a Fox News commentator who is going to be talking about the military, I think the key is that you don't really need to know anything. You just need to speak with great authority about whatever comes up.
Yeah.
You can make up the answer. Nobody cares. As long as you feel very authoritative about it, then you're good.
That's what I noticed about the confirmation of Kavanaugh, which was, and even when he was talking about the shit that he got wrong, he spoke with authority, but in a way that gave it the gravitas of, I have owned it. I like beer. I like to drink beer. A lot of Americans like to drink beer. I don't see a problem with that. Yeah, and it's just sort of like, that's not the problem. The problem is when you're drinking beer, are you groping women out of curiosity? There's no evidence for any of that. No, nobody asked if there was evidence. That's not what we're asking you. We're asking you in Congress, lying to which, by the way, is I think it's a felony, lying to Congress, whether or not, but okay. So okay, so he's speaking with gravitas and he's refusing to answer. He's like, I don't want to change the standards. There's been a few people. Elizabeth Warren did all right with him. I think she could have done better. I like that she was tenacious and didn't let him go. I mean, she really, and I think she went after the questions. But I mean, the real question is, okay, look, do you believe that anyone who can meet the standards for the military can be in the military? And the answer to that presumably would be yes. That's in fact the position that he's sort of been taking. Okay, do you believe that all women that there is no such thing as a woman that can meet that standard, and that the women already in the military are there by having lowered the standard? In my view, that's sort of how you get them on that question. I could be wrong. Nobody's, everyone's they're not dancing. I mean, they're trying to get him, and he's slippery as a fucking eel. But
oh yeah.
So basically, it appears like he wants to remove women from all combat roles. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, clearly the Bible states that the woman's only purpose is to breed children. I don't know why we're having this discussion. Yeah, it's mind-boggling that we're here in the 21st century and we've got fossils like this still stomping around playing idiot for the rest of us. It's an embarrassment is what it is. And
yeah.
And you wonder, okay, I knew plenty of guys in the military who didn't meet standards, but people kind of looked the other way and let it slide. So are we saying that's okay too? Or are we actually going to hold everybody to the same standard in the first place and, make that mean something? It's a perennial question because in a lot of cases, it's kind of, who's taking the test and grading the test and how do they feel about you? I mean, there's so many cases of this guy is, whether he's gay or black or whatever, we don't like him, so we're going to make sure we find a way to get rid of him. Whereas this guy with a history of domestic violence, drunk on duty, etc., we're going to pretend that none of the things he did ever happened.
Yeah.
Because he's a gold boy.
Yeah. Actually, that was one of the few. I was not a huge fan of the movie because I thought it was overacted, but it was Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robert De Niro. I think it was called For Honor or something like that, but it was about the first black.
Men of Honor, I think it was.
Men of Honor, that's it.
Hard hat diver.
Yep. And one of the things I really liked about it was how it portrayed the changing standards, but in ways that they could get away with, in ways that had sort of plausible deniability. So they're like, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go down there, and there's going to be a bag with all your tools. And what they do is they cut his bag right before tossing it. So he's got all his tools. They're down there. They're scattered all over the place. And it's like, well, he's got the same test and the same requirement, and he's got to use his tools to do it. But they cut the bag right before tossing. And it's sort of like that saying, for so many jobs, a woman has to work twice as hard to just get even the same recognition. One of the things is about the military is nothing like what it's ever been in human. I mean, an M16 is kind of the great equalizer. I mean, in the hands of a man or a woman, I don't want to be going up against an M16. I don't. And the IDF has proven that a woman is just as deadly as any male. Unless I'm unaware of something.
Back in World War II, the Russians proved that women are good in combat as any male. I mean, I think 3 of the top 50 snipers in Russian service during World War II were women. And fighter pilots, tank battalion commanders. There's lots of that. It's that we have saddled ourselves with certain preconceived notions of what things are supposed to be because of our good old Judeo-Christian ethic. And we can't let go of it because it's the only thing holding society together.
Do you think that the fact that this man is a Fox and Friends co-host or co-anchor on Fox News has in any way had a deleterious effect on his ability to opine saliently on being the Secretary of Defense?
I think one thing that Fox teaches their people, I don't know if they have a formal training program that teaches it to them, but they acquire the ability, if they can survive in that environment or are going to survive in that environment, to equivocate and make, confusing answers that don't really respond to the questions they're being asked. It's the whole avoidance matter. And I think that's one of the key things that is an issue because he's apparently well versed in avoiding the question and not giving a clear answer. But unfortunately, I think for confirmation hearings of this sort, that's all too common.
Yep.
In part because you don't want to say anything that will embarrass you or the person who's nominated you, but also because even if you slip up and say something hugely embarrassing, the way partisan politics works in this country, you're still likely to get the nod no matter what you've done. Is it true you murdered and ate babies for 6 years when you were younger? Well, yeah, but that was just I was a drug addict at the time, so it's excusable. Oh, okay, great, you can have the job.
And the Republicans have been like going on rants and speeches about how awesome the guy is and how great his answers are. It's almost like, and for those poor 8 people that you de-lived, that were just find a euphemism for it, we know that if you could take it back, you would, and we've all made mistakes. And it's
it's no longer about getting a good, let alone it's no longer about getting a qualified, let alone good person into those slots. It's just about getting past the obstructionism that the other party puts up against it.
I don't care that Matt Gaetz never got to his confirmation hearing. I care that he was even considered for Justice Department, considering what everybody in Congress already knew about him. That before the report was out.
So many of these nominees that are coming up that, the prima facie evidence is this guy is not only unqualified, he's anti-qualified.
He's the last guy. It's almost as if the problem is I don't credit Trump with enough.
Went on a months-long search to find the only person who really shouldn't be in this position. That's the guy we nominated.
RFK, let's make him in charge of the CDC and the, oh my God. I honestly, I would think it's a troll, but I don't credit Trump with enough intelligence to have done it. It's just, it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
It's insane when you look at it from a rational perspective, but he's looking at it from the perspective, just like any other authoritarian leader, the only metric he gives a damn about is loyalty.
Yeah.
And if you've got so many hits against you already that the moment you say or suggest anything that's disloyal, they can throw you under that bus and have you ground into hamburger in a night. Those are the kind of people he wants in the position because they will do exactly what he tells them to do.
I hadn't
And
even
if
considered that.
if they steal the government blind while they're doing it, so much the better. That's how we prove that government is inefficient. We can do away with government entirely. We're going to set up, oligarchic fiefdoms.
So basically, deliberately put in compromised people because now they're really beholden to you, or else you can. Wow. Shit. Oh, thank you. I feel so much better now than I did 20 minutes ago before the show started.
Always trying to be the bearer of good news, to make everybody feel more positive about events.
Well, you're doing a spectacular job, sir. Remind me to thank you next time you come on the show, which should be in about 7 years from now.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I don't know. Any final thoughts on? Oh well, I knew there was something I hadn't written down. There is ostensibly a ceasefire. The Palestinian or Hamas will be trading 33 hostages for a number of Palestinian hostages, several hundred, as I understand it. And this is the first of several phases. So, what do you know about the peace deal?
Honestly, not much. I haven't really looked into it with a great deal of detail. What strikes me when you have these lopsided prisoner exchanges, which we see with sometimes what goes on with the Russians these days with the Ukrainians, you get some oligarch's son or brother-in-law, and okay, we'll trade you 200 prisoners if we can have that one guy back. It's always suspicious when something like that occurs, because it's sort of an issue of, okay, if we give you 33 hostages who have literally no value beyond the fact that they're hostages, and you're going to give us a couple hundred of already radicalized and possibly well-trained terrorists, who works out the better in that exchange deal?
Well, do you know what percentage? As Israel's been taking a lot more. Israel currently has more hostages, or not hostages, a great deal more POWs than Hamas does. Do we have any idea how many of them are civilians? Because we do know there's been. So since October 7th killed pretty close to, if I recall, 2,000 civilians. 2,000 people total. It was 1,600 civilians, about 400 IDF killed in October 7th. Since then, about 47,000 Palestinians have been killed. Roughly 60% of them are thought to be civilians. So do we know how many of these that are being released? Because it seems to, I know nothing about how you'd make a deal like this, but if I'm Hamas, I'd say, look,
I'll put it this way: if I were Netanyahu, I'd give them Hamas fighters, because that they're already radicalized. They know what they're doing. They're going to be given arms to start initiating, and they've been in prison, so they're pissed off at the Israelis. And now you suddenly have an excuse, justification to renew the fighting and to do it with, redoubled vigor to do what you wanted to do. Because obviously they're the bad guys. They attacked us again.
So
I don't put that past Benny and his gang to do something like that. That's the way they think.
Well, in fact, two members of his cabinet, I think it was, said that they would resign if he took this deal, and they would take with him the far-right coalition, which is keeping him in power. Now, we know, we've discussed this repeatedly, if he goes out of power, he goes to jail, so he will do anything, including start a war that kills loads of his own civilians. It's killing more of other civilians, so I guess it's okay. But he's perfectly willing to do that to stay out of jail. I think somebody should just, I don't know if this would work, but just say, tell you what, resign. The next prime minister will give you, what is it? Not a pardon, will commute any sentence you get, and it's house arrest. You get internet, you get your groceries delivered to your house, and you can live at home for the rest of your life if you promise not to. Yeah, go write your memoirs and stop getting other people's children killed. But I don't think, I mean, that's actually quite a good deal considering what he's facing. But I doubt he's not the kind of guy to take that.
I think you need to be clear, though, when you said if his coalition folds, he goes to jail. That's not entirely true. If the coalition folds, then there has to be a vote of no confidence. Then you have to wait until some new prime minister is elected. Then he's no longer protected and goes to jail. So he has a, quote, grace period, if you want.
Good point.
Where he can find a solution to his quandary.
Yeah, excellent point, including, I would assume, leaving the country.
We know he's a survivor. He knows how to play the Israeli political scene like a master.
He's Putin level. He just doesn't have the country, but I think he's Putin level, both evil and cunning. Yep. So let's see. I was going to ask a question. We were talking about. So clearly, somehow, in order to get this deal passed, he needs to have convinced the far right that it's worth it in the end. It sounds to me like your argument might well be that argument, which is, hey, we release as many combatants as we can back into the field, and the first thing they're going to do is attack Israel. Yeah,
I would think so, but I don't know. It could be that they've pre-screened the people they're going to release, and they're all just old men and boys and ladies. So they don't pose a threat. I don't know.
I heard one good argument, and I know about as much as you do about this entire thing, but I heard one good argument because I got mildly annoyed when Trump basically started saying, we've got the deal, we've done this, and he's taking credit for the whole. He's not taking full credit, to be honest, but he's clearly saying that it was his administration. He's like, and we're going to follow through, and we're going to do all this other stuff. I was like, dude, the deal was made with Biden. It's got his stamp on it, not yours.
Well, he's the kind of guy that if it rains and droughts in Ethiopia, he's going to claim that he somehow made the rain.
Oh,
yeah, that. Blithering.
Somebody made a good point. And this is the only thing that got me thinking. I don't know how to feel about this because I don't think this is a good point, but it can be used that way, which is, and I think you had mentioned this before. There's the argument that's been made that he terrifies our enemies because he's so unpredictable, and it's like that's actually a genuine point, and that's a plus in his column. But he terrorizes our allies just as much because he's unpredictable, and that's a serious fucking negative. And he doesn't seem to understand that that's a. But I don't think you can really have one without the other. He's just unpredictable. There you go. But this deal is the same deal that's been offered, as far as I understand it, 4 times prior. And it's now been accepted 4 days before Trump goes into office. And I was like, is that a coincidence, or is that Netanyahu saying, I have no idea what's going to happen when Trump gets into office. I'd better sign the deal now.
It could well be that, or Hamas looking at it going, if he gets in, because we saw what he did the last time he was in office, the chances of getting anything resembling a decent deal dropped to nil. Remember, this is the guy that relocated the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, who's got all sorts of family money invested in various dubious projects in Israel, that kind of stuff. I mean, we know where his loyalties lie.
But then what incentive does Bibi have to take the deal? Why not just wait and see what Trump does?
Yeah, just accept the deal and do what you want. I mean, you've got a guy who's probably going to just, oh, okay, well, you have a good excuse, whatever that excuse is. When you make it up, let me know, and I'll say it was a great excuse.
All right, sorry, I got get my glasses. All right, thank you, Titan. Titan has an article. It's not confirmed yet. I'll keep an eye on it and see if it may be worth mentioning it. Apparently, the Kyiv Independent is saying that Switzerland is ready to host a meeting between Trump and Putin. Somebody's going to have to host it. We've been expecting it for a while. So Switzerland is, in my view, as good a place as any. Trump may be a little ticked at. I'm not Trump. Putin may be a little pissed at them right now. That's the other thing that I think you had said that I want to mention before we move on, which is, and I hadn't considered it this way, I've heard people say that, Ukraine is in a lot of trouble, and it is in trouble. But this has been a catastrophic failure for Putin. He was supposed to take the country in 3 days. The idea was to keep more countries from joining NATO. 2 more have now joined. A third, Moldova, looks like they're going to join. And one of them borders Russia. And he's done this at the cost of almost 1 million casualties. Their economy is trash. They've got sanctions on them. And he still hasn't come even remotely close to his primary goal, which ostensibly was to take Kyiv. I mean, he's nowhere near it, and he's demolished his entire military and decimated the mill.
In a situation where even if he was willing to make a deal, he can't do it without serious risk to his position.
By his position, I assume you mean like laterally, like falling out a 30-foot window or a 30-floor window, and yeah. I mean, this strikes me. I don't know.
And anything like that would be seen as a sign of weakness. The moment somebody perceives you as weak, that's the opportunity to grab for that brass ring.
I was a little surprised that it may have happened and we didn't hear about it. I was a little surprised after the Prigozhin thing that someone didn't do it. But that may be why he's moved people around so much afterwards. Is he didn't want to get saddled with people who were keenly aware of how quickly Prigozhin had infiltrated Russia. Nothing to see here. We just got a military force heading straight for Moscow.
Yeah.
Oh, so let me. Hold on, So I had asked earlier. Sometimes we ask sort of those like life questions and so on and so forth. So I wanted to ask you, who in your life do you think, complete change of topic here, I'm well aware, welcome to Downtime. It's pretty fluid.
This is the one that I wish I'd had a week to think about.
I should have, well, tell you what, we could save it for another week. I could give you my answer. I sort of know it.
Maybe yours will give me the thought that pops into my head. So the
question is, who's most influenced you in your life? And for me, it's my dad for a couple of reasons. But I realize there is now a very close second that I have to start really considering about. It's always been my dad. And one of the reasons was because my dad was one of the few people in my life who would always put my interests first, and just unabashedly so. Even over my mother, the two of them couldn't agree on squat. But it was really sort of crystal clear that he put my interests first. He also had integrity. He didn't mind sitting down and taking time to explain things. So I said, oh, okay, this is how and why we do things, And so he was in some ways where I get my penchant for, wanting to be an educator. And he was a lawyer. I had a very hard time with him defending people that he knew was guilty, and there's a whole bunch. We've done shows on that, and I intellectually very much understand how and why that's absolutely necessary, and I think even beyond intellectually, but it's still we can have a conflict between our morals and the ethics because morals and ethics are two very different things. And it's difficult, but without somebody doing that, without somebody defending to the best of their ability, even people who you quote know are guilty, the whole system collapses. So, and not everybody sees how or why, but that's the way it works. But the other thing was he spoke and practiced law in 6 languages. 6 languages. And so whenever there was like somebody in jail that nobody could talk to, they called him up and call him up. Yeah, we got a German guy here. Could you come down? And he's like, okay, fine. He goes down and tries to talk German to the guy, and the guy's like, bonjour. It's like fucking French, not German.
German.
It was literally that bad. But he could practice law in French, so it ended up not mattering. So. And I've got loads of stories. He saw some of the craziest shit. But in Massachusetts at the time, everybody had to put in a certain number of hours as a public defender, which was actually really cool because what that meant was the really high-end lawyers did public defender time. They had to. It doesn't matter if you bill at $1,000 an hour. You had to do public defender time to keep your license in Massachusetts. I don't think they do that anymore, but I always thought that was a pretty good thing. But he ended up getting stuck with a lot of these cases and ended up doing far more. And even though he wasn't a public defender, he couldn't say no to these people because these are the people who would literally get ground up by the system because no public defender could even talk to them to find out what happened. So he ended up doing 50 times his public defender hours, but not for the money because he usually wasn't. The state usually didn't pay you. They were supposed to pay you, but they didn't. And he'd do it because every time he'd go to jail, he'd see somebody who otherwise might be, this big macho guy, who big macho Mexican, who normally, could handle himself, and here he is kind of quivering in the back of an American prison because he has no idea what's going to happen to him. He's got some idea that American prisons are bad. He doesn't want to go to it, and he can't tell anybody nobody will talk to him. It's Spanish, but this is, this is northeastern U.S. Nobody can speak. Nobody can talk to him. So he just sort of is just like, somebody has to do something, and if it ain't going to be me, it ain't going to get done. So he'd go out and do that, and so that's the first. I get so much from him, and it's funny because he and I have a lot of his mannerisms, and there are people who every now and then would confuse us too, and they'd see me and they'd be like, "Are you Nick Suter?" I was like, I'm Nicholas Lamar. That's why we have to have the Lamar there, because yes, there's another Nicholas Suter. He's Nicholas B. I'm Nicholas L. At my dad's funeral too, they just referred to him as Nick Suter. Like, Nick Suter was a great man. I was like, thank you.
I appreciate that.
Well, and it got weird, and then I realized just how similar we were, because they were like, Nick Suter went to the Soviet Union. I was like, that's true, I did. It just got weird, and then I realized how much my dad, Nick Suter was a prankster. He would do this, and this. I was like, I didn't do that. Wait, who? And it was the weirdest.
What are we talking about here?
It was freaky. It was freaky. I was like, can we just use the full name, please? I would really appreciate it. I had to start using the full name because he was right at the Bible Belt, and I started writing anti-theistic papers, like, this is how you demonstrate that the Christian God does not exist. People would be knocking on his door going, Nick Suter wrote that. Is that you? He's like, no, that's Nicholas L. I'm Nicholas. Like, I'm sorry. Okay, I will use the full. Sorry. Anyways, it was a weird experience. Having said that, my answer is starting to change, and my father would actually be very proud of this change. It's starting to become my kids, and it's my kids because one of them is very much like me. and I get to see my own good habits and my own bad habits. And it's really weird, the things that she's inherited. And I don't know, there are personality things that she's inherited. And it may just be that it's because watching me and somehow she's glommed onto me, or maybe it's genetic. I have no idea. Stuff I would not think is genetic. But like, she processes information the same way I do. She and I can glance at each other, and we both know what the other one's thinking. I mean, down to, it's like psychic communication. So, but, you know, then comparing her to her sister, who does everything completely different, acts so much more like her mother, and is so competent in her own ways that are very different than me. And I of course, think I do things the best way, right? We all think that we do things, the way we do things is the best way to do things. And I can see her growing up and learning and being so different, but just as capable. And I'm learning more about myself this way. And then I see the way that they look at the world with this idealism. And I know that that idealism isn't nearly as true as they think it is, because I had that. We all had that idealism as a kid. And then we learn the world can be a really hard, cruel place. And, you know, that's tough on everybody. There's nobody who gets through childhood without trauma. But watching them pick themselves up, and watching them try to learn and become better and care for each other and care for other people, I'm just like, damn, I'm being inspired by my own kids. And they're starting to have watching them grow up is having more of an impact on me than my own father did, which is saying something, because everyone who knows me knows I worship the guy. So that's my answer. I don't know. I'm more than happy to give you a week to think about your answer.
I'll answer. I'll start with saying my father would be definitely up there, for different reasons than yours. But I think not everyone, but a lot of people would say either their mother or their father was an inspiration. Because let's face it, they're the people you have some of the most contact with as you're growing up. My father came from a fairly disadvantaged family. He was orphaned when he was, I think, 14 or 15. And so his mother, who had no job skills, basically ended up having to take in laundry to keep a roof over their heads, try to keep some food on the table. So he was working, not full-time, but heavy part-time for much of his teenage years. And he kind of put himself through college, with the GI Bill and other stuff. We used to have a joke in the house where every night when the kids were going to bed, he'd tell us a bedtime story, and his bedtime stories were inevitably basically tales from his life of the various different jobs and things he'd done growing up. And he remembered with great fondness the time he came in and said, "Well, what do you guys want to hear about tonight?" "Oh, tell us about the time you were an astronaut, Dad." "I was never an astronaut." "Oh, come on." To us, he'd been everything. He'd been a pilot. He'd been a what do you call it? Master of a ship. All sorts of things. Multitude of small jobs as he was growing up. And so, from that and watching all the stuff we did growing up, where he just was able to relate to people so well, had good relations with everybody in terms of, even KGB resident was a friend of the family, would come over and have dinner with us. And we'd be invited to go see. But in my high school years, we lived about 2 blocks from the Russian embassy. I had a standing invitation to go to the Russian embassy to watch movies, because they had some war movie or something, because they knew I was fascinated with military history. Anytime they had one, the GRU, head of the GRU, military intelligence, would call up my dad and say, "Hey, send Lance over tonight at 7 p.m. because we're having a movie about the Battle of Kursk." "Oh, cool." So I just wandered on. GRU guy had meet me at the gate and walk in, and he tried to translate for the movies for me while we're watching. And it was all just because he got along with everybody. And, so that was cool. But at the same time, my dad was very, very different from me. My father was one of the great extroverts, and I'm just the opposite. I'm extremely introverted. So to the extent that he'd host parties after he retired at the house for a 4th of July celebration, and we get 200 people there. And, who's that? I don't know. So you go up to him and say, excuse me, who are you? Oh, I'm just Joe Klotz. Why are you here? Well, your father met me in the line at Safeway and invited me to this party. Seriously, that's the guy's only contact.
Wow.
In front or behind him in the checkout line at the store. And he'd invite him. He'd strike up conversations with people just at random times, and always ended up, they were great friends by the end of the thing. It was something that just, to me, was completely outside my realm of experience. To him, as an addition of people, I think had a great deal of influence on me. There were 2 teachers in my junior and senior year in high school that I think had profound influence on me. Not so much that they taught me anything especially remarkable, but just that they were able to instill in me a sense of, even though you're very different and you don't have friends, you still have a lot to contribute. You're a smart kid. You know what you're talking about. You can do well. And that helped keep me going. So, not that they'll ever hear this, but I'm going to say the names anyway: Patricia 𝐒𝐬𝐜𝐡𝐨𝐥𝐚𝐬 and Ann Robbins. So we'll leave it at that. And finally, there was a period in my career where I almost left the Navy. And it would have been well before I'd gotten to commander. I was still a lieutenant at the time. But it became a kind of a joking matter amongst the officers in the wardroom that they could do no wrong, because no matter what happened that went wrong on the ship, the CO blamed me. It had nothing to do with me. It could be in a completely different apartment. People that I had no contact with, it was my fault, damn it. And it was just grinding me down. And this guy, I won't say he was abusively cruel, but it certainly bordered on it at times. And then this will take a little explaining, so bear with me. When you change COs on the ship, the new CO shows up typically about a week beforehand, and there's what they call the turnover period, where the old CO explains to what's going on, who does what, and they go through all the files, make sure everything's okay. And then you have a big fancy change of command ceremony. And at the end of the change of command ceremony, typically the new CO, well, the old CO just leaves. He's done. Bye-bye. The new CO will say hello to all his officers and such, and make some little speech. And then he'll go off to a reception party where all his friends come to congratulate him on this major milestone in a naval career of getting your command of the ship. And we had the change of command, and everybody is getting ready to leave. And you don't, by tradition, leave until the new CO leaves the ship to go to his party. And we're all waiting, and the announcing system on the ship, Lieutenant McMillan report to the captain's cabinet. Oh, God, what now? And, and I'd literally written the letter resigning my commission. I hadn't sent it in. I was going to wait till the end of my tour. And I was called in and I came in, yes, sir, what can I do? He said, I want you to know something. I've been on this ship a week and I've looked at all the departments, inspected all the records, and I've watched how people react and interact with one another. I want you to know that you've been getting a raw deal since the day you walked on board the ship. I don't know why, but that stops today. I know who's the best junior officer on the ship, and it's you. Thank you. Goodbye. And I mean, boom, that changed everything right there. So that was really an uplifting moment, and that really had a profound change, as you can imagine, on my life from that point. I wouldn't be who I was if it wasn't for that one moment. So
I have a theory that if everybody was 10% kinder, which isn't a lot,
yeah,
but if everybody was 10% kinder, because we're in the sort of middle zone, the net effect, because it's everybody near you is being 10% kinder towards you as well, the net effect would just be a staggering positive influence on everything.
yeah.
Don't know how to convince people to be 10% kinder. Turns out I did try it. Got a Glock 9. I was like, okay, you're going to be 10% kinder to people. And a few people
lead is kinder.
yeah, exactly. A few people said, Nick, that may not be the best way to do it. And I was just like, it gets people's attention. They're like, yeah, but A, you could be in jail, and B, is that really being kind? I was just like, of course it's kind. I haven't pulled the trigger, have I? But yeah. Nobody gets me. What I like is, I was telling you the difference about my two daughters. My eldest is exactly like me, so whenever we're at a party, I do everything I can to try to keep her there, because she's like, can we go? And I was just like, look, I want to go just as much as you. My youngest loves it. And like, even when she was 7, if there was an adult party, she's like, can I go? And my eldest is like, I don't want to go to this party. And I was just like, ooh, someone should stay with the eldest. She's not old enough to be on her own, so I'm going to stay with her, and you guys go. And then when that worked,
well, why don't you take this one, and I'll stay home with the elder.
My eldest one would just give me high five. She goes, that was perfect. I was like, amen. I was like, okay. I was like, what are you going to do? She goes, oh, I'm going to go draw or listen to some music. I was like, okay, catch you later. It was just like, oh. So again, watching my eldest, who just loves interacting with other, and it's the definition of, there's a couple different definitions you can use, but the definition that I don't like the best, it's not the one I learned, because I got my BA in psychology, but it is the one that they use currently and does seem to work the best, is that an extrovert gets energy from other people. They feed off of other people. So when they are with other people, they get that energy, and then they come back and they're like excited, and they come back and they actually have more energy than when they went.
And I would argue that it counts for some of the stuff you see with Trump, where he's constantly running these silly rallies and everything. He needs the approbation from outside to keep him up.
That I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. If he were to stop, he'd collapse, because he wouldn't have the energy to keep going. And so yeah, so for me, I get my energy being alone. It requires energy for me to spend time with other people, and there are a few people who are actually exceptions to that. But for the most part, being with other people requires energy, and it doesn't mean I don't like it. It doesn't mean I don't like them, but my energy level goes down as I try to negotiate the conversation, as I try to do X, Y, and Z. And for extroverts, the energy level's going up. And so that's the definition that I've seen as, like, yep, that's my two daughters. My youngest, yeah.
No, I was going to say, when I was at War College, they had us take a number of psychological tests, Myers-Briggs, and I can't remember the others, and then had a psychologist come in and debrief us on, not individually, but as a group, on the results, and talk about the various stuff, and he said one of the key things they've noticed is that extroverts tend to have a lot of what one might call shallow friends. People they know, recognize, and they can spend time with them, and that's great, but they don't really have a lot of deep personal interaction. Conversely, introverts tend to have a very few extremely close friends, and then everybody else to them is kind of a stranger, even if they've met them 100 times.
Yep. And that is the birthday parties for my eldest is like 3 people. She's like, I want to invite 3 people. It's like, you can have as many people as you like to this birthday party. We're going to have it at a place that lets you have 20. You want 3. She's like, yep. And then my youngest is going to the same place for the birthday party. She's like, I can only invite 20? Do you know how many feelings I'm going to hurt? And the people, how do I, oh my God. It's just, yep. So and again, that's why I've been learning more about them, just watching that. It's like, it's okay to be an extrovert. It doesn't make you crazy. I'm still not entirely on board with that, but I'm learning. All right. Well, unless you have anything else to add, I think it was a great show. And thank you all for joining us. I'll reiterate to those of you who are somewhat new or completely new or whatever, this is Downtime. This is our channel where we chillax a bit more. We have these kinds of conversations. Yeah, we do talk current events too, obviously, but this channel was monetized. It became demonetized. We are working to get it back. It's watch hours. So all of you who are watching right now, you're adding to us getting that. We got to get 3,000 watch hours to get it back. It's a pain in the neck. We'll get there. But I'd really like to thank Lance for coming on and shooting the shit with me and having these conversations. Thank you all who've been watching, and thank you for those of you who've been sharing the links and trying to get the word out there, because it really does help. But again, this channel's not monetized. You can't do super chats. You can't do anything like that. But you can pass the link on, and every view we get helps. So thank you all. And we do have some older videos too, if you're interested in that. And there was a time when we did breaking news on this channel. So there's that too. I distinctly remember. And we did breaking news, and it ended up being on this channel. And I had to say this. I was like, I don't know how to say this. And we had beaten most people to it. And I was just like, okay, Kanye West has officially become a nominee for president. He is running from the birthday party. The birthday party candidate said today, quote, and then I had to quote him, and he filled out the thing, birthday party. That was his. I was just like, you want to see some? It's just like, I'm sorry, folks. I'm not that funny. I'm not making this up. Kanye West from the birthday party is running for president. Things just keep getting. This is why I like doing the news, because every year we find a way to top it. It's just. Oh dear Lord. So thank you all so much for your support.
When somebody says it can't get any stranger than this, I wish the world wouldn't accept that as a challenge.
I know it's not it's a. Yep. Yeah. The universe is making us pay. For what crime, I don't know, but we've all done something in a past life. The universe is going to make us pay. Thank you again for joining us. We will have on a Xandering on Tuesday for In Time. Again, time is going to be negotiable based on what he's did. I don't know if you saw this. They've asked him, he's delivering a shipment of steel, and then he's got to pick up a battery. Do you know where he's going?
Do tell.
Los Angeles. He has to get a special permit so that he can drive on the closed roads. So the roads that have been closed down, they've given him a permit that he has to show the police that are going to let him drive on the road. So I was like, well, take out your camera, just film the thing, and we can, it's just like, he's going to Los Angeles. I was like, you're shitting me. He goes, no. He goes, hopefully I'm going to the part that's not on fire. So it's like, what do I think? It's like, by the way, have you done anything recently to piss off your boss, or just like, have you just asking for a friend? Yeah, so he's going to be in Los Angeles, and then who else? Somebody else, I think Merck said he's going to be in Los Angeles to cover the fires. So he's like, oh, hook up with us. So yeah, the two of you can hook up together. Like, oh, dear Lord. Okay, hopefully. So, assuming our co-host has not set himself on fire, we will have our show on Tuesday. He may have some spectacular footage for us. And we also will be covering the inauguration on Monday. That's going to be an interesting thing. When the right had January 6th, it was upset a lot of people. There are a lot of people upset that Trump won. I'm not anticipating anything serious happening during the inauguration, but we're going to cover it anyway because everything seems to be off. All bets are off. So we're going to cover it and see what happens. So we will see you all Monday for the inauguration, Tuesday for In Time, and then a week from today for another Downtime. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great night and a great rest of your week.